Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a video on the RD2000 and actually setting it up for your hands. I've seen a lot of comparison videos and reviews saying that the RD is very boxy, it hasn't got the dynamics on the V piano sounds. There's things like the Nord sample. And out of the box that might be true, but it depends on you as a player. A V piano is not sampled. With a sample you have several layers. I'm not even sure how many, but it might be 8 or 12. And they are triggered by how quickly you hit the keys, the velocity. And as you go from one velocity to another, it changes which sample it plays. And when you get as the top sample, you've got nowhere else to go. And that is often not a MIDI value of 127. It will be divided by however many samples. So it might be as low as 110 to hit the top sample and get that dynamics. With a V piano, you haven't got that. It's just a linear gradient. And as such, to get the top really bright stuff you would get by really hitting those keys, you've got to really hit those keys. And the default medium setting, unless you're a concert pianist that's used to a quite heavy touch, you may even need to make it heavier. But for most of us, it's too heavy. I've tried it with by monitoring the MIDI levels, and I can only get to about 110 to 114 when I hit it as fast as I can. And it means I'm not getting the top end dynamics. Now there is a key touch parameter, and it goes from super light, light, medium, heavy, super heavy. If you go too light, what you find is you get a very harsh sound because you're hitting that top end really early on in the curve. So a lot of your playing is as if you're bashing the keys. And it also makes it really hard to get a mellow soft tone. The key is balance, getting as much as the high while keeping as much of the mellow as you can. Most of us won't be able to do it, and it means we've got to improve our technique to be able to hit hard, hit quicker and hit slower. It's not actually the equipment, but we can all do better, I think, than the stock settings. And personally, for me, my setting is about light +5, light +7. I will say there's not just the 5 main settings, there is an increment of plus or minus as well. So it goes from medium down -1, -2, -3, all the way to -10, and then it goes light +9, +8, +7, +6. So you've got 19 gradients between medium and light. So the best way to do it without a MIDI monitor is this. Set it on medium and play it. Pick a sound you like. This is ACO1. I quite like ACO1. But pick a sound. That's on medium. Put it onto super light. And that's because most of that playing is hitting the high dynamic because the touch is a lot lighter. But when I play really gentle, it's pleasant, but it's not what you would call mellow. If you go back to medium, so the trick is to go between the two. So how I would do it, how I have done it, is you start on super light and bash away. And raise it to light. Not quite, but it's still there. Medium, it's gone. So then, in the menu, you come down one to where it says offset, and this is where your minus increments are. So the thing to do there is to again, start on the upper end and bring it down, or start on the lower and bring it up. Start on light and bring it up. And what you're trying to do is raise it till you can just get as much bright as you want. You see it's disappearing as I come close to medium. And if I take it back down again to light, it comes back again. Okay, so that's me set at +6. And already you've got more. As opposed to medium. Okay, but you can still play quite softly. That plus light +7 for me, I can still get a nice. So immediately it's much more dynamic than out of the box. If you're still not happy, and everybody has a different idea about what a piano sound is like, a grand in the room is not the same as a recorded grand or a mic'd up grand, and that's not the same as a studio mixed sound piano. They're all different. So the next thing you want to do is look at changing the tone. So first things first, into Piano Designer. Two things to look at. The lid position. Now the lid position adds treble, not sparkle, not that really top end. It's a treble. And I can show this by, if I go to 5, there to 6, sorry. If I drop it to 0, so you've still got the top end, but you've lost the body. I actually like 4, which is the default on acoustic. 1, so that's where I'm going to keep it. The second thing to look at is down the bottom, 3 from the bottom, the soundboard resonator. Now, I don't like 4, I think it's really harsh. 0 and 2 are quite similar. 2's got a little bit more mid-range, and 1 and 3 are quite similar. So if your default piano is 0 or 2, try the other one, and vice versa. If it's 1 or 3, try the other one. But you're not just looking for this sound, because you're going to play with the EQ as well. Now, ideally, to make that a bit more dynamic, I want to give myself more bass, but thin it out so it's transparent. I need to keep the mid-range, and I need to add a little bit of transparent top end as well. Now, this is 0, and this is 2. 0, 2. Very subtle difference, but 2 has more mids, and I want to keep the mids, and when I start playing with the EQ and I scoop it out, I'm going to lose some. No matter what I do, I will lose some. So I'm going to actually put it on 2, slightly muddier to start with, but in the end is going to be better. Trust me. Right, so now I'm going to come out of Piano Design, I'm going to go to EQ. Now I've got my EQ curve set up already. So input 0, you don't need to add any input, that's just a gain level, doesn't affect your EQ. Low I've left as it is, and that's because low is a shelf. And I don't want to add things right at the bottom, 20, 30, 40 hertz. That would just kill everything in the low end. So I've left that flat, but I have got a 5 dB rise about 63 hertz with a Q factor of 1, so quite a broad hump. That's going to give me some more bottom end. I've then though got at 315 hertz, which is where the mud is, between about 250 and 400. With a Q factor of 2, so it's a sharper hump. I've just taken out 1.8 dBs. So what that's going to do is give me more bottom end, but it's going to thin it out so it's more transparent. At 2K, which is where the attack comes from, bearing in mind because we changed the resonance board, we've already put mids back in. So 2K, which is where the attack comes from, I've given it a raise again with an EQ a Q of 2, so it's quite a sharp hump of about 2.4. And then I've raised the high end, the really top end presence, at 5K by 6 dB. Now this is the difference that you're going to get. So without the EQ first, this is all without reverb, without the EQ. It's quite pleasant, and for a mellow piano-led solo, it's nice, and you've still got a bit of that dynamics because of the key touch. Here's the EQ in though. Loads. So on the bottom end, EQ out, EQ in, more of it, a little bit tighter, in, out. Top end, you've got out, in. So there's a little bit more. In, out. Mid-range. Out, in. So the mid is almost the same, but you've just got a little bit more definition. And because they're not hugely different, you can use them. You can use this when you want to impact. And if you want a mellow piece, you can take the EQ off. You'll notice that with the EQ set as it is, with that bottom end and the key touch, I can still play mellow. There's well as the dynamics. And finally, because I'm going to run out of time if I haven't already, I have that saved. So if I go back to take all that off, so take the EQ off, we'll go back into the program designer, turn that soundboard back, we'll go into the key touch and go back to medium. So this is default. This is ACO1, my favourite piano at the moment, but this is flat out the box. Pleasant enough, but this is with all three. That's the key touch and the soundboard and the EQ. And obviously I can take the EQ if I want really mellow. So yeah, so there we are. I hope that helps. Ask if you've got any questions.